make this decoration, which is part of my Eddie display, I'm going to be doing a kind of switchblade knife, but the knife is not actually going to be a switch, it's just going to be a solid one. So what I've done is I've just drawn a design onto a piece of styrofoam, and I'm going to use my little steak knife and cut that out. So I've got the rough design that I want, and now I'm going to be taking my rasp and I'm going to be rasping all the sides at a 45-degree angle. And I'm just going all the way around on both sides. So I've got my initial design carved out, and now I'm going to take some 240 grit sandpaper and smooth it all out. So you get a nice smooth finish like that. I'm just taking my rasp and making a bit of a groove here so that I can lower this part a wee bit. And then I just sand that down a little bit. I've got my handle the shape that I wanted, and as you can see it's really nice and smooth. And now I'm going to be painting that with Mars Black. While the paint is still wet on my knife, I'm taking a small piece of paper and I'm just going to place it over the knife like that so that I can get a template of what the top part looks like so that I can carve the next piece out. So that's my pattern that I can use, and then I'm just going to touch that up again. I flipped the wet paint over onto another piece of paper and I've just traced around exactly how the shape is. And now on here, along this particular section here, we're going to write "No Good Kid." You can write it in whatever font that you want. I'm going to just try a few and see which ones I like the best. I've tried a few different fonts and this is the one that I actually like the best, so that's what I'm going to be using. So now I'm going to take some baking paper, or you can use tracing paper, and I'm going to put that over that and then trace it. And then I'm going to flip the baking paper over so that I've got a reverse writing, and then we're going to write this in reverse. I've got these aluminium lids that come out of the tops of coffee tins, and that's what we're going to be reverse writing this on so we can get an embossing effect. I've got the writing on the tracing paper and I flipped it over, and now I'm going to transfer that onto my metal piece, and I'm just going to be using an ordinary ballpoint pen that doesn't have any ink in it. And you need to have it on something soft, so I've placed a little bit of newspaper underneath it so that the lettering has got somewhere to go out onto. I've done all the writing. So there's our writing all done. And now we're going to cut the same pattern out so that we can stick that onto a knife. Before I cut it out, I'm just going to take my finger and dip it in some black paint and then just rub over the letters so that they can change colour. I'm taking another piece of styrofoam which is 2.5 centimeters long, and I'm just going to cut that off, and I'm going to round the sides at a 45-degree angle, so eventually it'll land up at 2 centimeters, which are the top parts for my knife. I've got the little piece out and I've rounded it all so that it's exactly the same on both sides, and now I'm going to slice that down the middle this way so that I've got these little pieces that will go onto the blade. I've cut it down the middle, and now I'm going to be painting those in Mars Black as well. To make the blade, I've got this piece of acrylic. It's quite a nice thick one, and what I'm doing is I'm taking my ruler and measuring 17 centimeters for the size of my blade. Now it's not going to be that long, so I'm going to be having 5 centimeters going into the actual handle. So I'm making the point of the blade to the top part there, and I'm going down by 4 centimeters, which is going to be the point going up like that. And then I'm just going to join that part. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. And the size of the blade that I'm going for is 2 centimeters, so I'm going to do the same pattern on the 2 centimeter mark. I've got the shape of my blade drawn out how I want it, and I'm just going to take my Dremel and just cut it all out. At the 5 centimeter mark, I'm going to be going in by 1/2 centimeter and then going down so that I don't have too much bulk going inside my handle. I'm doing that on both sides. I've taped my template to my piece of tin lid, and now I'm going to be cutting that out. I'm going to cut 2 exact same templates. As you can see, I've modified the template slightly so that I've rounded this section off so that it fits better onto the knife. So I've just cut that off. I'm going to make another one the same, but obviously without the writing, for the other side. I've got my blade cut out, and now I'm going to just bevel the edges. I'm just using a rasp to bevel all the edges. I smoothed all the edges so that there's no sharp pieces sticking off. I haven't sharpened it or anything, it's just a decoration, so that's all I'm doing to it. And now I'm going to be taking some of this Super Chrome spray paint, and I'm going to spray paint the whole thing. So that's the first coat on the one side, and then I'll flip it over and do the other side. Quite happy with the coverage, so I think I'm only going to be doing 1 coat on these. To create the illusion that the knife is sharp, I'm using this really small little paintbrush, and I'm just using some black paint, and I'm going to paint a pattern on the knife by just taking a stripe and going along. Sorry, my camera stopped filming just before I was showing you. So what I've done is I've taken this small little brush and some black paint and a very, very little bit of black paint, and I've just striped it so that it looks like it's actually sharp. And now I'm just taking the little paintbrush again and just drawing a line in the middle, a very, very thin line. Just to give the illusion that it is raised up in that section. And that's how I'm painting my blade. So I've done both sides, and as you can see, it looks like it's been sharpened. My little pieces are all dry, and now I'm going to be using this rich gold metallic finish, and I'm going to just be painting just this top section and the bottom section and these little pieces in gold as well. I'm just using a number 6 flat brush to just roughly paint over them because I don't want a solid finish to them. So just taking a little bit of paint on it, so hardly any paint on it, and then just painting so that it looks like it's a little bit weathered. So that's all I'm doing. So that's how I've painted my handle. So just the bottom and the top on both sides. Where I've written the no good kid, I'm just taking some gold paint on my finger and just going to go over the black that we did earlier. Just like that. I've got a little serrated knife which is the same width as the stem, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stab the center of my handle at the same distance as what the knife is going to be going in at. So I'm just marking my knife as to how deep to go. I've stabbed my hole in, and now all I'm doing is I'm pushing my blade, and that's in position there, and now I can finish it off. I've got a 20 gauge copper jewellery wire, which is just a soft regular round, and I'm going to be using that to go around I've got this really thick copper wire which I use for doing my bonsai trees, and I'm just going to be taking some and curling it just like that so that it can go around the little pieces just to finish them off a little bit nicer. I'm using the two different size copper wires. That one will be for the front, and this one I'm going to be using at the back because I don't need such a bulky one at the back. So that the copper wire is not sticking up that high, I'm going to be just tracing around the silver piece and then making a small groove around there, and I'm going to squash the copper wire into there so it will sit just a little bit flatter. That's what our knife is looking like so long. I'm making this decoration as a right-handed display. So as you can see, when you hold the knife, the pretend blade is on the left. So if you wanted to make it a left-hand display and you flip it over, then you'd be putting the lettering on this side. To make it even more simple, that you don't have to worry about which side you have it, you could probably do two of these and put one on either side. But I'm only doing one side so that my knife can lie like that. And I've done this small groove in it for my copper wire. I'm just going to be using some hot glue to glue everything together now. I'm taking my small little pieces that we cut out, and I'm just placing them on top of the knife like that to get how big I want, and that's about 2 centimeters. And I'm just going to trace the shape of that so I can stick that to the blade. I've cut my little pieces down, and now I'm just going to paint them black where the blue is exposed, and then cover them with the gold and then stick them onto the blade. I've glued all my little pieces on, so that's the front of it, and then I finished off the back as well. And now the last final piece that I'm putting on is I've got one of these stationary split pins that I'm going to just be trimming down and placing onto my knife. You can put it in whichever position you want, and that's where I'm going to be putting it. I'm just taking my flush cutters and cutting the legs off the pin. So that I can glue it on nicely, and I trim the other one off as well. I've left a tiny little bit of a leg like that so that I can just turn it over, so I've got something to glue this little piece to. I'm thinking it looks a little bit plain, so I'm going to put a little bit of a gold line just along the side, on both sides of that. I'm just using the back of my little paintbrush to do this, and all I've done is I've taken it and just dotted down the center line there so that it looks a little bit more attractive. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So to even out my pattern, I've just put 4 little dots on there and bigger dot in the middle, just so that both sides can look similar. And I've done the 3 dots going up that side and just 1 at the bottom on both sides. and then I wait for all that to dry. All the paint is dry now, and now I'm taking my liquid floor polish. I use the product Brilliance, and I'm going to be painting 3 coats on it. One to seal the paint and the other 2 to give it a nice brilliant shine. I'm just using a paintbrush to brush it on. The nice thing is with this one is it forms little tiny bubbles so you can see exactly where you've done. I've got my knife completed, and as you can see, no good kid, and all I've done is I've put it together onto my Eddie display, and I've put like a rather well-loved teddy and just a bottle and some candles, and I've just written by copying the exact letter that he wrote. So that's my wee little Eddie display.